You're listening to Kicking It with the Koves. Do you have a problem with it?
No, Sensei!
I mean, no, Dad.
No, Dad.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to Kicking It with the Koves. We have an awesome episode today. We've got a very, very cool guest. We've got Ron Thomas, who is a sensei himself, also a incredible master at self-development, and even I'm geeking out, an OG Cobra Kai from Karate Kid. Please welcome Ron Thomas, Kicking It with the Koves.
Hi, Ron.
Hey, Rachel. Hey, Jesse. Marty.
It's such an honor to have you on here. Sorry.
Oh, it's a very big honor. But he's an original legend. He's not just, he doesn't drop in and do guest stars. He's actually the original, I don't want him beaten. I want him out of commission.
But Sensei, I can beat this guy.
Oh, my God. I love this.
Wow.
I love that scene,
Yeah.
That's a great scene. And it's so funny. We never have lost contact in a sense of just simpatico. You and I always stayed, affectionate and emotional towards each other.
Yeah.
Over 35 years. Whenever we talk, it's like, well, we didn't see each other since day before yesterday, and we haven't seen each other for 2 months. So, there's always those kind of people that I think a lot of that happens now in Cobra Kai, where there's a simpatico between all the Cobra Kai on Cobra Kai, the kids and all that. And that same element that we have in life exists when the actors come on the set, which I think we often discuss, how exciting it is to be so close, so fast for so long.
Yeah.
And you're able to work with people like that at the drop of a hat. You can pick up moments and, acting and music and all that. There's a simpatico that it's indescribable. You can't bottle it and sell it,
Yeah. And through the years, people have asked me about it. And you're right. It's hard to put into words. But I think, going back, it's almost like it was just yesterday. We were on the set of The Karate Kid, creating this thing that we didn't know how big it was going to be. But the synergy and the energy and the connection between all of us, I think, is part of the success of the film, at least a part.
Sure.
And and having being a part of the film is an honor, but having the friendships with you and Billy and everyone has been an amazing part of my life for sure.
But you were great on the show. I mean, that's why you were invited back a couple of times, because motivational speaker that you are normally resonates for you as an actor on our show. There's no question about it. The scene where Billy's drunk and comes into the congregation.
Love that.
The pastor.
I just watched it again the other day. It was just, you're so subtle. He said, you're just telling him it's not the right place, but he's your friend and he's troubled. So you can't come down on him like a hammer. It was touching.
Yeah. And what can I say? It was brilliantly written, and what a great way to open a show with Pastor Bobby sweeping his friend who's drunk in church.
Ron, what was, I really want to talk to both you and my dad about the original Karate Kid film and then tying it back into Cobra Kai now.
Yeah.
Going back to the Karate Kid, what was your audition process like for Bobby Brown?
Okay, well, that's a great story, because I was a black belt at the time, but my agent calls and says, well, first of all, I was doing the Conan show up at Universal Studios, the live tour show, Conan the Barbarian. I was playing young Conan. And the producer, Gary Goddard, came up to me and said, there's this new film called The Karate Kid. It's being produced by Jerry Weintraub and directed by John Avildsen. And I'm like, who's that? He said, well, he only won an Academy Award for Rocky. You should try out for it. And so I thought the first thing I thought was, like everybody else thought, The Karate Kid, that's a stupid title. That's what a lame title that is. I go home for literally that day, and my agent calls and says, "You've got an audition for this movie called The Karate Kid." So, but don't tell them about your karate experience. Don't tell them about that you're a martial artist or a black belt. And I'm like, what? It's called The Karate Kid. What? And they said, listen, if they bring it up, if they ask you, tell them, but otherwise keep quiet, because they're really looking for actors and they want you to focus on that. And they're going to train you in karate anyway with this guy named Pat Johnson. And I'm like, okay. So I didn't say anything. And then I got a call back, and then I got a third call back over at the studio. And we walked into a room, and John Avildsen was there and Ralph was there. I don't think Marty was there yet. They were bringing in, like the guy from Taxi and all these different people to audition for Crease. I remember seeing some of those guys there.
Robert De Niro?
Not, I don't remember Robert De Niro. But I walk in, and there's these actors that I have admired who are my peers, like my age group at least, like Crispin Glover, and there's all these stars and kids of famous stars, which was Jerry Weintraub's thing. He wanted to hire like Chad McQueen, Steve McQueen's son, and they're all in there, and we're all auditioning in front of each other. And I remember reading with Ralph, and I think I was reading for the role of Johnny at the time, or at least for this callback. I'm trying to intimidate Ralph, and Ralph and I are, pretty face to face. And John Avildsen, for whatever reason, he walks up, and I think it was to see if I would break character. I think that's what his reason was. But he walks up, and he literally intrudes into the scene I'm reading in the middle of it, and puts his face right in mine to see if I would look at him or break character, which I never did, but it was really intimidating and really kind of strange to me, because here he is, and I saw him out of my peripheral vision, but I never looked at him. And then he backed out of the scene, and then I finished it. That was my third or fourth audition over at the studio. And then I got the part, and the rest is history.
Wow. And
so great.
I love when I hear stories like, we didn't know it was going to be a success, and we originally thought The Karate Kid was a stupid name. Like, what was it like after The Karate Kid released, and then it became this worldwide phenomenon? What was that like for you? Surreal, and everything I wanted as a young actor moving to Hollywood to pursue my acting career, and studying, and it's everything I wanted. The strange thing for me was I had a manager who never came to the set. And he never came to the set to meet any of these legends, to show up at all. And he told me, this film has no audience. There's no demographic for it. And I also had another guy say that to me on the air. I did a hometown, thing. I go back to Reno, Nevada, which was my hometown. And I did a TV show with one of the the film critic there on the local news. And he said the same thing to me. He said, this movie has no demographic. And I'm like, so how wrong people can be, So that was the starting point. But then as it becomes this worldwide phenomenon and has this global impact, it was, it's hard to put your brain around it, I, as an actor and in my career, I get a little bit angry that I didn't have the right people in place in my team to capitalize on it. You know what I'm saying? And so personally, there's that frustration. Like I think I could have really capitalized on it if I had the right people behind me, but they didn't even believe in the freaking movie. So, yeah, we had Chris Jericho on last week, and we were talking about how we never really know what's going to make it. Like the things you think are not going to make it. The things you think are really going to make it, like don't make it. And you just never know. It's like you just have faith.
Yeah, right.
If you talk to Robert Kamen, the writer, he will always contribute the success of Karate Kid to the charisma and the chemistry of Ralph and Pat Morita. I don't. I contribute the success of that. There's a reason why 35 years later we're saying sweep the leg, no mercy. I don't want him beaten. I want him out of commission, wax on, wax off. All the same reasons why, you remember the lines like "The Force be with you" from Star Wars, or "Gone with the Wind" frankly, Scarlet, I don't give a damn. All those great lines from movies. And why do you remember them? Because the movie was written so well.
Yeah.
You don't copy lines from movies that aren't very good.
Right.
All those movies were classic movies that you remember lines from. And why were they classic movies? Because they were written beautifully.
Yeah.
So I contribute the success of that picture to Robert Kamen, who argues with me, no. But I think it's by far, we know more lines 35 years later from The Karate Kid than, and I'm a movie buff, and, maybe Casablanca or maybe The Searchers, okay, Pilgrim, or some of the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies you remember. But honestly, more lines come out of The Karate Kid today than most films. And I think it's all in the writing. A great percentage is in the writing of why something works.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, it had to be a great story. I think it's pieces of all of it, don't you?
No formula. Absolutely no formula.
Yeah. I mean, you played Kreese so brilliantly, and Pat played Miyagi so brilliantly. I can't think of another actor to play Miyagi the way that Pat did. It's so subtle, the subtleties in his performance and everything.
It's like trying to say, who could play James Bond better than Sean Connery?
Right.
You had all these other people playing it, but Daniel Craig was a whole different, interpretation. But Sean Connery was the essence. And
exactly.
Why was he? Because he was the first, or was he really just that much better than everybody else?
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting question, in cinema. Very interesting question.
Yeah. One of the things I was curious about, because I always love this, obviously I was on Cobra Kai and the camaraderie was always so fun, but going back to the original, that camaraderie between you guys that are still friends today, that was shown in season 2. And what was that like, being on set back in the 80s with all those guys, everybody kind of starting out, my dad, seeing him, and I mean, what was that feeling like, being around everybody? Did you guys have that camaraderie as, just young men doing this martial arts movie?
Yeah, totally had that camaraderie. There was just this friendship, and I don't know if it's part of, we were training in soccer, and we were training on the motorcycles, and we were training in karate every day. And that in and of itself is fun. It was just fun to get out there and do all of that stuff. And then on top of it, just to create this bond, it just sort of happened, and we were friends, and we were friends off the set. The weekend would come and we'd hang out at each other's homes and go to parties and do what young guys do. And we weren't really troublemakers, except for maybe one of us, Chad McQueen. No, I'm kidding. We were all really good. Chad was a wild child, but we just had so much fun. And like I said, doing all of those things on top of creating this movie that was just a blast to create and to be around all these people. It just sort of happened, and then it just continued, like Marty said, through all these years. We've just been friends, and we love each other. And we were, when you think about it, there's only 5 original Cobras in the world. Mm-hmm. I used to say, when I was doing the Conan show at Universal Studios, which we would complain about the show, and it was kind of like corporate theater. You're doing, the corporation's running the thing and making decisions, and we're doing 5 or 6 shows a day and beating ourselves up for all these tourists coming in. And the actors, after a while, you'd start to complain. And I used to say, we're the only people in the world that have this job. Nobody else in the world has the job we're doing. And so in the same sense, there's only 5 Cobras, original Cobras. Of course, Marty was the King Cobra, so that makes 6 of us in the world that got to create this thing. So to try to wrap your head around it, and 35 years later, here we are, and it's still this mega success. I sat down with Billy I had dinner when I went back to sweep him in the church. He took me out to dinner afterwards. I said, have you wrapped your head around what's going on here? And he said, it's a miracle. That was his words. He goes, it's a miracle.
Makes me emotional. I get emotional hearing these things because I feel like Karate Kid, John Kreese, all of these characters feel like family to me just because we've just grown up with it. We've grown up in that universe. So to see the success now, it's so meaningful. It's so emotional. We get, my dad shows us these letters that he gets from people, fan letters. And there was a letter he got where a man was telling him that my dad was like his father figure because his father died. And another man had cancer, and the strike first, no mercy mentality. He said, I used that when I was battling cancer. I said, no mercy. I'm going to fight this cancer. Just to see the impact that this type of art has had on people is huge.
And it's crazy. I get the same thing. When I did the sweep in the church, when I took Billy out, several months later after the season came out, I got this message on Facebook from this guy whose son was kidnapped.
Oh my God.
And he told me how Pastor Bobby, and the character of Bobby always doing the right thing and trying to at least and lead his. And then he said, you don't do the right thing because it always works out. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And he quoted that in this message to me. He said, I've hung on to those words since my son was kidnapped, and I'm trying to do the right thing. And I had to send it to John and John Hurwitz and Josh and Hayden to show him, hey man, your writing is having an impact. And it's the Karate Kid. When you hear people say that this movie or these characters changed their lives, it's really true, on so many levels. And I can't think of another movie that's done this. That's had this kind of impact.
I think of sorry, Jess.
Oh, I was just going to say, and now a musical.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right.
We got to figure out what else there is. Karate, Cobra Kai, and space. I don't know what's coming up.
Space. But space. It would have to be space.
It is amazing. But I think, like we were saying, it's just this all-encompassing thing that, especially in today's world where there's so much entertainment, there's you can get such a variety of things on so many different platforms, going back to like the Karate Kid, which was this wonderful, simplistic movie of an underdog in the 80s. So many people were, at the time when it came out, it wasn't like there was all these streaming platforms and stuff. So, it was a big deal. And then to have that nostalgia now, then you can have that with your kids and your family. It's such a huge deal to be able to share that with your kids. And we were chatting about this the other day, Dad. Remember, like, that is the key, is being able to share it with your family. You can't go see, some of these, rated R movies with your kids or whatever, but you can see these specific films with your family all together and have the badassness of Cobra Kai, and then the other side, Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do, and then the Karate, you guys. It's like essentially perfect. I mean, it's so perfect. And I know for a fact that there are so many other movies and television shows that have used the same concept of Cobra Kai because of its success, and bringing the original characters into a show or movie again, and bring like the OGs, you could say, back. Like they did it in Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man. Everybody's seen the damn movie now, so I can talk about this. They brought back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and what's his name? The newest Spider-Man. Tom Holland. Thank you. They're all working together in the multiverse, and it's like, I watched the movie in theaters. I was emotional seeing it because I was like, oh my God, Tobey Maguire. Like, that was my Spider-Man when I was younger. So seeing like you guys come back, it's this incredible feeling of nostalgia that's like, you can't buy it. You can't buy it. It's a feeling that you guys bring, and it's a total compliment to you guys and obviously the show. And I just think it's an incredible force that the world needs it right now. They really do. I think that's also another reason the show is so successful, is the world needs Cobra Kai.
We were at a charity event last night, Billy and I, and something sponsored by Jay DeMarcus and Kevin Carter. And it was very interesting because a woman came up to me. She said, I have 2 children. And we were talking about the language that occasionally is used in Cobra Kai. And she said, my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old watched it. And some of the language was hard, but by and large, we loved the show so much. I let them watch it and hear this language because the show was so important. A lesson about, bullying and all, and even jeopardizing the fact that the kids could hear some, curse words. Bottom line was the value of the show, the 40 minutes, was more important to this personality and her family than pulling the kids out and saying, well, you can't watch this part, because the whole was greater than a part of the pie,
Yeah.
And
interesting.
And that's coming from a Nashville family who she didn't know me, and yet the show was part of her life, and she jeopardized the language just because the show has such a wonderful lesson for her children.
Interesting. I often wonder about that because, you and I, we've done Comic-Cons together, and it was so fun hanging out with you guys in San Antonio.
Oh my God, it was a blast.
Oh, it was a blast. But I often wonder about, you see these little kids. I remember we were doing a photo op, and we were back in the photo booth, and this little tiny girl, tiny, like 3 years old. And I'm in my mind, I'm wondering, do these parents really let their 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds watch Cobra Kai because of the language and the violence and all of that? And this little girl, I remember her walking in and just looking up at you like like you were God. She adored you, Marty. And I think Tony and I were sitting off the side, and little girl staring at Marty, and we took a picture of it. I think you have it. Maybe
I remember this photo. He posted it. I remember this.
Okay, it's to see that, it's incredible. But again, I'm thinking, do they really let that little girl watch Cobra Kai with some of the language and violence? But they do, I guess.
They do, but people do because it's just enriched in other areas for the kids, And I've tried writing. I could never. We had the writers on previously, and the interesting thing about that is they talk. The most interesting element for me was the word "why." The writing is so good, the show's so good, because they figure out for every character why. They address the word why. Why is he doing this? Why is she doing that? Why are they motivated to be X, Y, or Z? And it's fantastic because we've all worked with good writers, but to ask the question why and then write about it is why all the audience loves the show.
Nice.
You get to identify with all different people's justifications about life. It's rare.
Yeah.
Ron, I wanted to ask too, when you were asked to come back to the show, what were those feelings inside you? Like, did all of a sudden Bobby come up in in a way, before, oh God, what was that feeling like for you?
Well, first of all, Billy and I are good friends. We talk, and he was like closed mouthed about the whole thing, going back prior. This is pre-season 1, right? He knew what was happening, and but he kept his tight-lipped. And then the announcement came out, season 1 was happening, and I still hadn't had a conversation with Billy. And then season 1 came out, and I'm chatting back and forth with Rob Garrison and Tony O'Dell, and we're like, hey, the show's called Cobra Kai. Remember us? We're OGs, right? And we're like, the season 1 goes by, and I had a conversation with Billy after that, and he was telling me how hard it was, how long the hours were, and how in his apartment, because we weren't there, the OGs weren't a part of season 1. He had a photo of us in his apartment just to keep our memory alive for him. Because again, going back to our conversation earlier, it was just what we created together back in the 80s, and Karate Kid was so special that Billy actually felt like he had to have a photo of us to look at every day because he was alone, filming this thing without us, which was kind of weird for him even. And we had a long conversation about it. And then finally we get a call. we get a call from casting, and the producers the creators want to talk to you guys and have a phone call. And we're like, gee. And then Tony's texting me, you finally got the phone call, right? Yeah, I got the phone call. Yeah, we're talking. And so, and then they kind of told me what they had in mind for Bobby and what I thought about it, him being a pastor now, and why, answering the question, why is Bobby a pastor? Why is Jimmy just a dad a soccer dad who's, his wife kind of runs the show, and why Rob Garrison is going to be sick, and but answering the question why for Pastor Bobby, and because in their minds we all were so traumatized by Kreese, this guy, and that we chose these paths in life as a way to sort of heal from the past. And Bobby, ends up being a pastor. That was their kind of analysis of it. I have my own backstory, that I kind of filled in the gaps, but it was fine. First of all, number one, to answer your question, it was a relief that they didn't forget about us. And they told us it was their plan from the beginning. They just didn't know when or how they were going to bring the OGs back. So, and then to be on the set, which was crazy in and of itself, right? Because here we are, we've been friends all these years, but then to be in front of the camera again on the set, putting makeup on, doing the same characters we created years ago, that spark and that energy was still there. It was like stepping off the set of Karate Kid and stepping on a Cobra Kai. Wow. And there's so many synchronicities with this cast, with this show, that it's, I'm a very spiritual guy, so I'm kind of metaphysical, and I look at things a little differently. Like I don't believe in coincidence,
Same.
I believe in those synchronicities, and this is bigger than us, and that's kind of me. And I'm looking at this going, this is just so bigger than we are. This is so beyond us. Because here's the thing: one of the synchronicities is that we showed up on set Cobra Kai day one, with the OGs all together again, on the very same day that cameras started rolling for Karate Kid, Halloween.
Wow.
What? And I don't think that Josh and John and Hayden planned that, but it was, and Billy brought it up, and I didn't even think about it, but Billy goes, this is the same day that cameras started rolling on Karate Kid.
I just got the chills. That's so crazy.
Cool. Love it.
Yeah.
What was the first day like on filming The Karate Kid? What was that like? So that was the first, I didn't know that. This is the first scene, or the first filming day was the Halloween scene?
Halloween.
That's crazy.
The date. And that's the day 34 years later, or whatever it was, that we showed up in Atlanta on the set as a group together, and cameras started rolling for Cobra Kai.
Wow.
I don't think that was planned by John. I don't even know if they knew, John and Josh and Hayden. I don't even know if they knew that. But for us, it's like, God, that is just a trip. That is so weird, So yeah, first day of Karate Kid, I think we were at Leo Carrillo Beach filming. When cameras rolled, we were on the beach doing the motorcycles and the beach stuff.
God,
years and years ago, and yeah, so. That aliveness and that thing kind of just never went away, and it was so magical for us to be doing this again all of these years later, because it's part of our lives, and we all love the craft of acting and creating these characters. And then, and I'll just say this really briefly, I'm really, really happy that that Rob Garrison got to be a part of this before he passed away, and that kind of put an exclamation on his career and on his character, Tommy, so
I agree.
I could go into when I came back the next season, and I literally felt Rob's presence in the hotel room, because I stayed at the same hotel that, the three of us stayed at, the year before for season 2, but this time it was just me. And I was alone. I mean, the three of us were going out to dinner and hanging out at the hotel and everything, but this time it was just me. And there's a whole story behind what was happening with Rob and everything. I won't go into it unless you want me to, but
you can.
Yeah. Well,
only if you want to.
Here we go with the synchronicity thing, right? This whole being a spiritual guy. Again, I don't believe there's I believe there's a physical death, but I believe there's more to life than meets the eye. And so Billy and I knew what was happening with Rob. In fact, before I even flew out, Billy was keeping me up to date on Rob's condition. And I had this magical day with Billy in the church. It was just he and I were, I consider him one of my best friends. We respect each other. He's a deep thinker. I think I'm a deep thinker, and we kind of connect on that level. And I had this magical day in this church filming Bobby and Johnny, Billy and Ron together. But at the same time, we knew that Rob was in hospice. We knew he was passing away, And so then Billy and I, afterwards, we went out, and we hung out, and we talked about it. And Billy was thinking, I think it was a Friday night, and Billy was thinking about flying out for the weekend to go see Rob, and asked me if I should. And it was just, this magical thing, and then this heavy thing that's going on at the same time. And I remember sitting in Billy's trailer, and we thought he was getting better for a second, a day or two prior, and then he got worse. And then I was just crying. I just started crying like I'm talking about right now, And Billy said, I'm right there with you. I'm right there. I was there with you yesterday. I'm right where you are. And anyway, so we knew what was happening, and I'm done with my stuff. I'm headed back to Southern California. I'm going to get on the plane. Billy, and I'm leaving the hotel, and this is where I say I felt Rob's presence. I literally felt him in the hotel with me as I'm leaving to go back home. And I get on the plane, and the weirdest thing was Billy said, "Don't stay on Wi-Fi. Keep your texts on. I'll keep you up to date." And so the weird thing was, I got on the plane and I couldn't connect to Wi-Fi. So I had this 4.5 hour flight, and Billy and I knew what was going to happen. I think we thought we knew what was going to happen with Rob. I had this 4-hour flight, and I couldn't talk to Billy because my phone, I couldn't connect on the Wi-Fi. I couldn't get, and so I land, turn my phone on, it opens up, and my phone is blowing up. It's like going off. And then I'm driving from the airport to my house, and got on the phone with Billy, and we knew Rob, he had passed on the way back. So I don't know what else to say about that. That's my sort of synchronicity story of that whole thing. But it's strange, the timing of everything. This just kind of surreal to me, just as this is surreal of the success of Cobra Kai and Karate Kid and everything. It's, you can't really put it all into words.
Well, I'm so glad you talked about that, and appreciate you opening up, and we get a chance to honor him at the same time. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, he's definitely a part. He's definitely our brother. He's definitely a part of this whole thing, and we miss him. We miss him.
And I think it's beautiful that you talk about being a spiritualist, that you're present to the experience, present to the life, and present to the loss, and celebrating the life. And I think that's beautiful. And I appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate you crying on here. I'm a huge advocate for raw emotion and men crying, and teaching men and boys and little boys it's okay to cry. It's okay to love and to feel that loss. So I appreciate that.
It's absolutely okay. And Marty, you called me too, which I so much appreciated, to see how I was doing. And even I remember your words. I remember where I was when you called. And I think my daughter or my wife was sick, and we were at the doctor's office but anyway, I was having a conversation with you, Marty, and I just appreciate your words so much. And I remember you saying, sometimes we get so caught up in everything that we forget. We just forget how important this is, this love and this bond, and we forget to connect with each other as much as we should, and call each other to say, "Hey, how you doing?" I remember you talking about that, and I love you, Marty. What can I say?
I love you too, man. I really do. It's real important. It happens, it happens to me in Jewish holidays. all of a sudden I realized that I am not as close at times to God as I'd like to be, because I have a career, because you have children, because you're moving, whatever the reasons are. And then you slow up. Like this weekend for Easter and Passover, I watched the 10 Commandments and I watched Ben-Hur. And those movies are so spiritual. They still hold up. 1957, 1959, they still hold up. But it left me with a feeling. I made a Seder by myself. There was nobody on Friday night, and I made the Seder alone.
We FaceTimed. I FaceTime you.
We talk. We talk to you every day.
But I mean,
You did. I know.
So anyway, I just wanted to keep that connection. And so many times we lose that connection, the spiritual connection, because we're in the physical world, bam, 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 just getting stuff done and being productive and tenacious. And those moments of that, as I said to you that day, it was just, I have to keep going back to those moments. And I always try to talk to Jesse and Rachel about just not forgetting those spiritual moments. And, it's hard. The world's going so fast, and there's a lot of exciting things going on and productive things. You lose perspective of slowing up and just taking a breath, and the old adage of smelling the flowers and showing gratitude to God that you're alive and you're pretty,
I totally agree with you 100%.
And within that vein, Ron, I wanted to ask, tell us about the coaching that you do. You deal with spiritual work and life coaching work as well, which I think is, we obviously love that. It's part of Rachel's business. And tell us how you got into that.
It really started with the martial arts. I could say there's a part of it that started with my athletic background and being a champion swimmer as a kid, and martial arts and golf and all these sports that I did as a kid, that athletic mindset. But the more esoteric and spiritual part of it has to do with my sensei, actually, who was kind of like my real life Mr. Miyagi growing up. And he would talk to the class, and after, it was jujitsu. He's a jujitsu guy, judo. And he would talk to the class about philosophy and character building and metaphysical. He was very metaphysical and spiritual, and talked to me in a way that, nobody really ever had before. And I soaked that stuff up like a sponge. And then later on, after the Conan show, Universal Studios closed and everything, I opened up my own dojo. And I was now the sensei teaching all these kids, and just wanted to give them more than just martial arts techniques, more than just self-defense, because there's really, with the right sensei and the right instruction, you really do change lives. And so I tried to do that in the martial arts and carry on my own sensei's legacy and pass those things on to my students. And I'm really, again, I'm very spiritual. I really soak that kind of content up, metaphysical stuff. And then at some point I realized, I'm an actor. I'm good on stage. I started on the stage. Most people don't know that. Did a lot of theater, kind of like Rob Garrison. And I like speaking in front of an audience. And there's a lot of people out there that don't want to come in and get their nose broken in a dojo, but they like their nose right where it is in the middle of their face. But they want these life skills and these character development and the esoteric principles and the focus and the discipline and the things that martial arts provides. So why can't I take that kind of content as part of my message of life mastery versus martial arts mastery? But just because martial arts master should be, or ought to be, not that every one of them are, but a lot like Mr. Miyagi, in that they're life masters. They've mastered their emotions and their character. And so why can't I take that message to the stage? And that's kind of how it all started. And then I actually got some extra training, like neuro-linguistic programming, which is Tony Robbins' whole background. I'm a master practitioner in that. And also very spiritual stuff in there, and hypnosis, the subconscious mind. I got certified in that. So I kind of bring all of that together in what I do, as in my message and my content. And that's that's kind of the story.
Dad, there's a new sensei in town. His name's Ron Thomas.
Yeah.
The real guy. I'm the Hollywood sensei. He's the real thing.
Ron, I love hearing all of that. I'm very familiar with NLP and hypnosis. One of my dear friends, Joey Tabanella, is a top NLP and hypnotherapist here in Los Angeles, and I also own a life coaching company called Transformational Solutions. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I've owned it.
We need to hook up.
I know, we got to connect. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we primarily work with people that have struggled with substance abuse and trauma and depression and mental health issues. And what I love is that in Cobra Kai, there's this teacher-student dynamic, and it's allowing people to be taught and to be coached. And I love that. And to coach people to help them transform their own lives, to go from being homeless, drug addicts, to owning companies, to becoming actors, to be going back to school. It's so fulfilling. And I just like, what is that feeling like for you? Like, do you work with people individually? Do you primarily do group work? I would love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I used to do a lot of individual stuff. It's time consuming and it's kind of heavy, and it's kind of like, I really want to work with groups and seminars and speaking from the stage. And I'm writing this book, which is also based off of The Karate Kid. I just got to get it done, man. I've gone through like 4 rewrites, but it's got a lot of this, what we're talking about in it. But the Karate Kid fans are going to love it. I had this idea several years ago. Actually, I think I had the idea for this book prior to Cobra Kai, prior to season 1. I've been writing this thing for about 4 years now, and I'm trying to get through it. But I really enjoy the group setting and speaking from the stage. I do a little bit of one-on-one stuff. I'll give you an interesting, real quick story. An old client of mine, she's been a client of mine for like 10 years, like when I was living in LA, and I had this group of individual clients, and she, through the years, periodically when she's in trouble, reaches out to me, and her husband got COVID recently. This is recently. And I really kind of like stay away from the one-on-one, but I did it for her. And the power of NLP, is what I wanted to bring up. The power of hypnosis and the subconscious mind. She said her husband was in the hospital for 78 days, almost died. And she had basically what she had is post-traumatic stress. She was forgetting her grandkids' names. She wasn't, she was just escaping. And I did a thing with her, and I thought I was going to do several sessions with her. I did one session over Zoom, and I did this NLP thing for post-traumatic stress. Done.
Just
don't have to do another session. She's good now. It's crazy how powerful, that kind of intervention can be.
Oh,
I love self-development. It's so important. It's
momentary. And I just want to ask one quick question, because I know we have to wrap up soon. I just want to.
Sure.
The strike first mentality versus the defensive mentality of Miyagi. Sorry.
Oh, I like Miyagi-Do. That's good. We should call it Miyagi-Do.
Can you just really speak to like the benefit of both? The benefit of the offensive strike first and the benefit of the defensive, which is in Miyagi-Do. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. What first came into my mind when you're asking the question is, not being against anything. In other words, I'm not against war. I'm just for peace. And so it's kind of like standing up for something. I'm for peace. But if you want to go to war with me, and if there's no way out of it, then I might just strike you first. I might have to do that. There's a time to do that. I forgot the quote from the general, stand your ground, never fire. I think it's Schwarzkopf. Stand your ground, never fire unless fired upon. But if it's a war they want, then let it begin here and now. So that's kind of that strike first sort of mentality. In a real fight, two guys could go out to a bar and get in a fight over a hot girl, one night. The same two guys could go out to the same bar have the same fight the next night over the same girl, and it will be two different fights. because it's a series of movements, and things are so subtly and they're changing. So in the martial arts, I never thought of offense or defense or striking first. It's a series of movements, and you do what you have to do offensively or defense, because a good defense is also an offense. So I kind of toss those words out, and I go back to that mentality of look, man, and I think that's the thing that about Bobby, my character, is that he was composed. The guys who are composed and centered, and they don't let their emotions take over, and they don't go to rage, those are the guys you better watch out for. And that's why people ask me all the time, like, would Bobby have beaten Johnny? Would Bobby have won this All Valley if if Sensei Kreese didn't make you disqualify? And I say, absolutely.
Ninja,
I got to stand up for my character. But if you look at Bobby, he's composed. He just wanted to win. You see moments where Johnny just loses his mind. You see the rage come out. Those are the people who are out of control, but sorry, Billy, if you're listening. but anyway, so where was I going with that? Just maintaining that composure and that centeredness inside is very, very important in dealing with life, the chaos and the way that life can punch at us, or dealing with a real life combat situation.
Striking first as a good offense, I think, is what I'm taking away from what you're saying.
Well, John Kreese said it in the scene with Ralph. He says, peace is just a lull between battles.
Ooh,
that was good.
That was
very good, Dad. I like
Dad.
it. Well, Ron, we just thank you so much for coming on here with us and chatting about this. It's so much fun to do this with you, and obviously we'll see you soon. And just thank you so much.
We're going to go to Manchester together, right?
Oh, yep, that's right. I'll be there. Yep,
yeah.
We'll all be there.
Yeah.
It's going to be very exciting.
Let's do this again. Let's do this again when my book comes out.
Of course.
Yes.
I want to do a round table. I'm going to have all
That's
the OGs
what I wanna do.
as a round table.
I want to have you and Billy on.
It'll be amazing.
It'll be amazing.
And thank you for all the work that you do helping people. It's such an important thing, and people need that as much as they need Cobra Kai.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, truly.
I love you guys.
You too,
Thank
man.
you for coming on. We love you.
Love you too, Marty.
Ron, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for listening to Kicking It with the Coves. Please leave us a 5-star review if you like the show. I hope you do. So far, pretty good, I think. Also, leave a review at Apple Podcast. It really helps us a lot. And thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks.